All right, hello and welcome again. This is day number 10, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback. Welcome back again. Thanks for sticking with me. Day 10, you are a special person. If you've seen 10 days of me monologue and talk, I'm actually a quiet, introverted person. Um, I'm starting to fall in love with doing this. Uh, I just recently heard, as far as business goes, the person that believes it the most needs to be the first investor and the person to invest the most. So here I am doing my best, my part in this challenge. The challenge is mostly for me, really not for you. So thanks. Let's get underway here. First, I like to always to start out with a little bit of housekeeping. What informs me, where, just so you know, I'm not talking off my head, that I'm not just talking about theories that I might have about the subject of race in America, especially black people, how they live, the pressures on us. I shouldn't say how they live, how we live. I'll take you through as we go through this journey, my walk and the changes I need to go through with my attitudes here in America towards everybody now that this has happened. So, a man named Dr. Claude Anderson, his name came my way through a friend, actually of his, and he just doesn't know it. We don't know each other, but his work uh, has just turned my whole world upside down, and I need to get with what this man is saying about black people in America. Uh, Also, on that note, you need to know the material, his name. I'm coming to this conversation of his, oh, about uh, 13, 14 years too late, but better late than never. The project he envisions, his vision is vast and it's not going to happen overnight. So, Dr. Claude Anderson is his name. And couple texts that we will come out of is one, a Black History Reader. We're actually coming out here today on our little talk about immigration, black labor, white wealth. And I think the white wealth should be on top because white wealth rests on the backs of black labor, which we'll see. But I'm glad black is elevated as well. I didn't make the book cover. It's very adequate anyway. And his national plan for blacks to come together, a difficult task in itself, amidst a lot of pressures upon us from white society, Asian society communities, Hispanic communities. You'll see me be very specific with those terms for good reason as we go on. And to lighten it up once in a while, I'll sprinkle in some fiction. Harriet Beecher Stowe, back in the mid 1800s, started a series of short stories in a publication called the National Era, I believe, an abolitionist paper, and but depicting the life of slaves in America in her day. And that book actually, very popular book. Back in the day when it did come out as a one unit. The only book that outsold it when Uncle Tom's Cabin came out was the Bible, and the Bible's been number one. Is the Bible still number one? I don't know. I gotta check that out, but I know the Bible's a big seller. It's hard to beat the Bible. Um, oh, and also behind me, hashtag us too. Google it, Facebook it. That link will take you to community that probably articulates these issues much better than I, if they're still talking about it. I got to catch up with this group of black people and see what's going on. Also, I want to mention, give a shout out to, I don't know if he would consider himself Dr. Anderson's protege or companion, compadre, partner, but he's a businessman, business professional, educator named Dr. Boyce Watkins. I'm actually working through some of the Dr. Watkins material from a project he's got going called the Black Business School. And I'm just starting out. I can't say too much. I'd rather give a glowing recommendation after I get some business and make money and do that kind of stuff. If I don't, it's probably more my fault than theirs because they seem to be complete. I'm lacking capital and some other stuff. But my breakthrough is closer than it was yesterday. I'm claiming it right now. Okay, we're talking about immigration today. And interesting enough, um, I try not to give too many clues about the date of this material. I'll say it's 2019. It's 365 days, so I'm committed to making this year, portion of this year, dedicated to educating myself and my very small community of people about how blacks got into the situation that they're in. Are there still prevailing forces that are applying pressure upon blacks from hundreds of years ago, and things like that is what we're talking about if you're new to this conversation. So, but having said that about dating the material and all that, it'd be nice if this could be a timeless conversation that people tuned into and referenced. It doesn't matter. Most of this is just personal. Okay, I keep digressing. To the point, immigration. The president, our present president, made mention. There's this situation. I think it's Nicaragua. Their government's collapsing, and they're having a lot of unrest. And these caravans of Nicaraguans, I'm pretty sure it's Nicaragua, came north with the blessed America's graceland on their minds. Like many refugees, that they'd be considered refugees because there's a lot of violence there in their community, so they want to come north. You know, they trekked through Mexico and came all the way up, and there's a lot of all kinds of turmoil at the United States southern border. And this situation exacerbates a conversation that's already ongoing about border walls, immigration, Mexico, and all this stuff, even from back when this present president was being elected. So, but he did say something. He he's a tough guy to figure out. He's a tough nut to crack. You love him and you hate him, and because he's talking about a whole lot of things. Uh, uh, he's good with his mouth. I would not. I didn't vote. I wouldn't have voted for him. I don't even. I would not. I wish he was not president. But anyway, the most powerful man on the earth, in a recent televised speech, mentioned how immigration puts pressure on um, vulnerable peoples or communities. I'm paraphrasing here. In America, and he mentioned African Americans and Hispanics, which I found it was nice to hear him say that. That at least the impact of immigration, which we're going to get into in a moment, is a factor in economic pressures as it pertains especially to African Americans. Now, we're going to have a discussion soon, eventually. We still got 300 some odd days left, about a difference between African American and Black American. The terms are used interchangeably. You'll hear me say Black Americans mostly. Some of the reason may or may not be obvious. The particulars of that conversation will come later. But the president mentioned that, it would have been better, as we're going to see today, had there been more sensitivity towards this before the Mexicans came in a big rush and flooded the border, before even the white immigration, the Italians, Jews, and the pressures they brought in displacing Black Americans. I'm just going to give a little shout out to the president. Every once in a while, he'll shine because nobody's all bad, nobody's all good. All right. Um, there's, okay, Mr. President, it's not all bad and negative towards you. It'd be nice if you slept in the White House. No, I won't go there though. Okay, here we go. Okay, and we're coming out of Black History Reader today. We're going to come out of all Dr. Emerson's material. Eventually, I'm presently reading Powernomics, his national plan, and I stumbled on some stuff that I just need to outline and highlight stuff and get ready to talk about that, because we're all over the map. This is not a linear progressive thing, because we've got 400 years of stuff to talk about. So in this, a Black History Reader, please buy these books, get them. They may touch you in different ways in different areas, depending on your identity, who you are in America. But today's question is question 53. How do immigration policies specifically injure Black Americans? I mean, I'm thinking about that. Before we get into the text, we can just brainstorm. I can just look in my city, in my environment, how immigration puts pressure on Black Americans as far as employment. Immigration knocks us out of the box as far as receiving benefits, things like that. When we think about early immigration, forget what's going on in Mexico and before we got strict with borders, but think about the flood of immigrants coming over through Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty, and all of that romantic tale about those coming in to America through New York. And it's not popular history, but that flood of people coming in to New York, it displaced the Black Americans who were holding service job positions in hotels and things like that. It jeopardized even Black Americans who were skilled, like shortly after Civil War, I believe. A lot of skilled Black Americans were in position in different areas with different skills. They were supplanted by immigrants coming in, and there's always because of language barriers, favor from the government, a lot of things. It was just that Black Americans are just this constantly oppressed community, or this group of individuals that there's always backstepping and trying to resist the onslaught. I wish we could find our hot gates. Remember the movie 300? King Leonidas takes his small band to the hot gates, and they can fend off thousands and thousands of armies and bombs and arrows and everything. They can stand their ground. You know, I wish Black Americans could find their hot gates, um, their physical land, um, to where they can finally put up that fight and start pushing back and get respect from the power that be. So, um, the immigrants, they get considerable opportunities extended to them, and they enjoy an elevated status. There's privileges they automatically receive over blacks when they get here, and it's like today, it's even more severe with language barriers. I was thinking about this subject, and you think about something simple like a union, being part of a union, which a lot of the Hispanics that are building the buildings, they're doing the skilled trades. You know, the Black Americans, oh, they're doing general cleanup, which is what I did. You know, if I got into that industry, that'd be the general cleanup. It'd be hard to get into a union because they're populated by the Spanish, maybe run by whites, managed by whites, but they're populated by the Hispanic community there. Um, so, something as simple as being part of a union is even challenging for a Black American because there's travel. Black Americans aren't as communal as they need to be. Hispanics are much more communal. You'll see them every Sunday when the weather gets nice. You'll see them every Sunday having these big gatherings and stuff. Black folks just don't do that. But part of that is like, you can get a ride and stuff. There's stuff available. The blacks in general don't have that imperative, that drive to get their community members elevated. Um, so something simple like that is as far as a privileged status. Okay, so 4 areas Dr. Anderson points out is that there's a competition for space, rights, economics, and privileges. As immigrants continue to come over, right? Black Americans haven't got the 40 acres and a mule yet. um, we'll look at. I think this is the book where Dr. Anderson talks about a lot of um, physical, tangible things promised to Black Americans, as far to be like reparations for slavery that we just never got. You know, so um, we as a group, you know, notwithstanding our athletes and our entertainers and our talk show hosts, game show hosts, news anchors, whatever, those that minority of the minority percent, we got plenty of that, but the majority of the minority is struggling out here. All right, but as far as space, physical space, we could run on for a long time about this, but blacks need their physical space. We can do it. We've done it before. We did it in Tulsa. We did it in Rosewood. We were bombed out and lynched out, murdered out, burned out, when the whites of that time saw blacks prospering, uh, exercising ethno aggregation. If you don't understand that term, Google it, or we're going to talk in depth about that. Vertical integration. Those were the 2 aspects that made those physical communities viable, thriving. We need more than Facebook. That's not good enough. We can do better than a Facebook community. We need physical space to do business on. Dr. Anderson actually tried a project in Detroit. It didn't come through for a whole host of reasons. Um, what had a it didn't have a strong black backing as he needed. Even with black businesses pledging their support, he still couldn't get it through. Um, but other ethnic groups, Chinese, Japanese, Hispanics, they got their little Havanas, Chinatowns, French towns, all these places, spaces that they come in, and they do it they're very successful at helping one another, and they get their brothers and sisters and family from overseas or wherever they're from, and they keep bringing them in, and they sequester their space through language barriers and cultural barriers and things like that. And all of a sudden, boom, they got it. Next comes political power, economic power. They're building businesses. And it's interesting, they'll come in, if they're not predominant in predominant black neighborhood, there's a difference between neighborhood and community, then they'll put their business in the black neighborhood, extract resources. You know, the blacks go to the bodega. I'm going to do my best to avoid the bodega from now on, because the bodega is taking my wealth, my disposable income, and furthering and helping their community, not doing anything for mine. So, um, like they don't spend back in general to black business. So that's some of the sensitivity hopefully you'll get here. Um, it impacts wages. Before the immigration impacts wages. Before the civil rights, blacks earned about 56 cents to every white dollar. After civil rights, went up to about 66 cents for every white dollar. And then now, uh, later here in our present day, we're back to pre-civil rights movement um, ratios as far as the black wages compared to the white dollar. And employment, I mentioned it already, the language barrier is an issue. That's one of the blacks are hindrances. Ebonics was tried, shot down. Some of the resistance came from blacks and all that. Part of our issue, part of our failure is civil rights and social integration. It didn't give us tangible physical things. It gave us a lot of symbols, um, and it quieted overt racism, but it didn't. We didn't come away. You know, the best we got was a white marble statue of Dr. Martin Luther King on the Washington Mall, carved, sculpted by an Asian. You know, that's what we got out of civil rights. You know, we didn't get a bronze statue sculpted by a black American worker with bronze, if there are any. You know, we got a white marble statue carved by an Asian. So we still got a little ways to go. You know, we made some noise, but we got to find a way to assert ourselves again and get something, get some land, get businesses going, things like that. Immigration and it's hard to do while we're swimming upstream against immigration. And the immigration it favors, that gives high percentages. There are actually percentages that of people that they let into the country. These percentages are mostly white, and very minimal numbers of blacks are allowed in. I worked with a girl from Ghana, and she said she happened to win a lottery. So there's lotteries going on to come to America. I asked her, do you know who else won the lottery? Did one person win or what? But they don't share that information. They're not. Um, as far as employment, the language barrier, but also, like I mentioned, immigration knocked us out of the retail business with the hotel cleanup. I'm sure trained porters back then slowly saw the influx of immigrants and displacing black people, things like that. And local businesses, government jobs, all these things, trash collection, landscaping. Here, let's see, it's all in Spanish now. You don't see black folks going. I have no idea how black folks are making money nowadays. I'm hooked up with the black business school, and I've got my little part-time job. And there's quite a few blacks there, men and women, doing what I do in logistics. But like during the day, what are black people doing? I wonder. Hopefully they're all got businesses, and I just need to be educated. Oh, in in education, 1965, the immigrant minority children displaced black children for resources, and the immigrants are organized. There are they're a unit. They move. They're not separate fingers. They move as a fist. That's more powerful, right? Um, Affirmative action plans out the window because or affirmative action, what was originally intended for blacks, now goes to minorities and people of color. So it's very blurry and it's not specific, and the resources aren't focused towards black folks. So now that black folks are lumped in with gays and the handicapped and women and some valid groups that need assistance, but they're getting this help as a result of blacks being lynched, blacks being having dogs sicked on them. You they've got their martyrs. Mr. Young Shepherd boy tied to a post or to a fence in Colorado, and women can lift up their martyrs as well. But blacks, being black, has 400 years of martyrs, people hanging in trees and whatnot. Right? Since 1990, 12 to 20 million. Um, Let me see. Well, let me go back. Where's the elected officials? Black report immigration reform. Anyway, a lot of a part of that. Let me just focus my thought here. As far as the illegal immigration, like we just briefly glossed over legal immigration. What about illegal immigration? And I resist all the positive rhetoric about DACA and the DREAM Act and all that. I didn't like that when it came out and when they were talking about it. Everybody put all kinds of energy and was so excited. And I'm like, this is even before I got into Dr. Anderson's material. I'm like, man, they get a DREAM Act. Blacks don't get anything. We get social integration and civil rights. That's actually a shout out to Dr. Anderson. That's a brief. I just wanted to tickle your mind a little bit. If you get the book, you'll get a more precise understanding of the black frustration with that issue of how immigration impacts blacks in America. But it's very real, ongoing. They're going to find a way to bring the South Americans into the fold, and They'll have babies and they'll have dream acts and bring their whole families, and it'll be another barrier for blacks to overcome. Thanks for staying with me. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and this is 365 Days to Racial Change. See you soon.